Welcome back, everyone, to Talking Points on our brand spanking, sparkly new YouTube channel. Also, if you're audio only and you're a bit confused as to why it didn't come up on Spotify, the last episode, we've got a new home on Spotify, a new home on Apple Podcasts. So do double check and make sure you're following F1 Talking Points, the purple with the white, this beautiful new logo that I designed. I'm very happy with myself for doing that. Anyway,
had to get that one
welcome everyone. It's the Monaco Grand Prix. It was, as Monaco goes, I thought a bit of a, I wouldn't say worldy. A lot happened, a lot to dive into. All four here today. Hayden decided to wake up. Hayden, you haven't been introduced on the new channel, so welcome, mate.
Unlucky to everyone who thought they were getting rid of me because I am back, so start crying.
Red Bull fan tears incoming. Don't worry, I'm sure Hayden's checked his bias this year, right? You're not a Lewis bias driver.
I was never biased in the first place. I have no idea
No,
what you're referring to.
Not at all.
Course not, mate. But of course, Matt is back. Of course, Aldas is back as well. Boys, how are you two doing? Matt, are you good? We were at Karen last night as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Fun. Yeah. Like, lucky enough, me and Tom got to go to the MTC to watch the Indy 500 with the two guys getting second and fourth. Great result for the team. But then, also me and Tom were watching the race of Monaco with all of the red flags, and it's just it was a bit of a weird one. This, but yeah, Aldas, what did you think of the race?
Do you know what? As Monaco goes, I actually think it was all right. I think it was a good race. We had the kind of last portion of the race was kind of classic Monaco in terms of there's always that kind of anticipation of is someone going to pass for the lead, but it never happens. But I thought the beginning was actually pretty good. I mean, the way it kind of started with all the red flags and kind of postponements wasn't great. But again, as Monaco goes, I thought it was a pretty good one, actually.
Let's quickly, before we get into the talking points of the race, out of 10, I'm saying 8. For Monaco. Matt, what do you think?
Oh, I'll go
optimistic.
7 out of 10 just.
Hayden.
6.98.
All right, I didn't know your name was Hayden. God. It's like last week all over again. He's just used to me not being here. 7. I'll go with a 7. I was very pleased with it. I enjoyed it.
Do you know what? I'm gonna go with Tom, actually. I'm gonna go 8. I actually thought it was again, as Monaco goes, I thought it was actually a really good one. So yeah, I liked it.
But you know what? Well, before we get into Sunday, let's quickly go over Saturday because, qualifying session of the year. In many ways, it is kind of unfortunate to have 2 Monaco Grand Prix in a row where qualifying is ended by someone putting it into the wall. But I guess that's the nature of the track. Obviously, it was Charles Leclerc last year. Sergio Perez bum first. Did any of you clock on the live feed? Because you literally had one frame of this Red Bull just dropping it. And then I was like, I'm pretty sure that car just lost it going into, headed up to the tunnel. That was, in terms of qualifying sessions, I think, Sergio looked like he had the measure of Max for a lot of the weekend as well. Obviously, Charles got the pole, but what did you make of Perez's pace as well? Because Matt, I think that he was on top of Max.
Absolutely, and
I
think coming off from Barcelona, having the team orders, you could argue whatever the race result was going to be for that. I think he kind of felt a bit of doubt with himself, and then coming into Monaco before the crash, he was on par, if not a bit better than Verstappen, and it was a shame that literally towards the end it's where he sort of just spun it around and it looked like to just be on his own accord. But I think ultimately this was Perez's one to really prove that he didn't really want to be a number 2 driver anymore, and unfortunately, if he hadn't had that little spin, he might have been probably in the top 2, I would have thought, rather than just being normal in the top 4. But I think it's really interesting to see that this new dynamic now of Perez is he's breaking out of the shell of not wanting to be a number 2 anymore. What do you think, Aldas?
I mean, to be honest, I think actually in the end, again, awkwardly, I think I actually won him the race because Max was on a quicker lap. I don't think Sergio was actually improving, so tinfoil hat times. But again, in a weird way, it kind of helped him because Max, although he was kind of behind, which we're not used to seeing actually, this is a really weird thing about 2022. Actually seeing Max Verstappen genuinely, not because of penalties or anything, but genuinely kind of not be on the pace sometimes of his teammate, or at least really close. But it kind of won him the race because he out-qualified Max. He always had that track position in terms of the Red Bulls, so he always had the strategy first. And Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. And to be fair, I saw the post-race interview with Max and Checo, I think, by Sky, and Max just had to get it in there, like, about the red flag in qualifying. So you can see that Max was like, he was saying it in a joke, like in a joking fashion, but I think in the back of his mind, he knows, like, oh my days, not again. But yeah, mate, Checo got it done. Simple as that.
I mean, it could have gone either way because they were all so close. Checo, Sainz, Leclerc, Verstappen, it was all so close between the four of them, which is great to see. I've been a bit of a critique of Perez so far this season because a lot of people were bigging him up after the first 3 rounds, take out that pole from Saudi Arabia, and he was just doing the job that he's supposed to do. Everyone was like, oh my God, Perez is amazing this year. I'm like, well, not really, because he's not beating Verstappen. He's just doing the job of a number 2 that he should be. But now we've got to a stage where, you know, Perez is taking that fight to Verstappen, and you know, I'm getting ahead of myself here, but he's now only 15 points behind in the championship. He's in the fight. He is in this fight now.
Yeah, I'd agree. This is the first time we've seen a teammate take it to Max on merit since Daniel Ricciardo. Really, like, yes, it's been, you know, I think Jeddah, you know, yes, Sergio out-qualified Max, but I still think Max probably had the out-and-out pace. Yeah, of course, but it's super impressive. I'm super happy for Checo as well. And as we saw, spoiler alert for Sunday, he was able to convert quickly. Before we get into the race as well, I want to ask you boys, who was your qualifier, your top qualifier? Because for me, I've got to say, because a lot of people think I don't like him, but I'm going to give credit where credit is due. Sebastian Vettel, P9, in that Aston Martin that they're still early doors trying to understand. I think Seb, for me, was qualifier of the day. You, Matt.
Yeah, I think I've got to agree with you. It's either that or George Russell, because like in the last talking points, I jokingly said, I didn't jokingly, I said like realistically, I think top 5 for Mercedes, and both you guys were like, oh yeah, no, they're definitely going to be up there, but like I didn't think they were going to have the for it. So I think George did good in comparison to Hamilton, but I think Vettel, like he's delivering to be the number 1 of the team there, and it's to get it into the top 10 on quite a short, strong track. I think it's really. I think
we've got to
really
go to Hayden after that. We've got to go straight to Hayden. So, Hayden, what do you make of that, mate?
Well, I mean, Monaco is a qualifying track, and I'm famous for saying that Stroll cannot qualify for the life of him. So it's never going to go well at Monaco, and then you're just stuck in traffic. So Sebastian Vettel, incredible job in qualifying. He did it again. He did it last year. In 2021, he did it again here. To be different from you two, I'm going to go Lando Norris because, you know, if Matt's going to throw shade my way, Lando's in 5th and his teammates down in 14th. So Mr. Monaco Daniel Ricciardo couldn't really pull it out of the bag, could he? So
Mr. Redemption.
I'm going to go with Lando Norris on that one.
Do you know what? I'm going to be different again, and I'm actually going to go with Charles Leclerc because I feel like all weekend he had the pace. Like, he always had a few tenths in his pocket. I know Sainz and Checo and even, you know, Max would have pulled out a good lap in the end in Q3, but I mean, Leclerc was on. If Checo hadn't spun, I think Leclerc was like 3 or 4 tenths up on that lap on his own best, and he was already like on a provisional pole. So Leclerc was on a very special lap. He always had the pace, and I'm going to go with him because he has so much pace around those streets, regardless of what kind of category he's raced in. So yeah, I'm going to go Charles Leclerc. I've got to give him a dub.
Definitely looking racy. Definitely looking racy this weekend. All right, so Sunday, you know, Monaco in the rain, and I've said this before, you know, I think dry Saturday, wet Sunday is kind of the dream combination because you get a bit of rain on Sunday, mixes things up, and that is what we saw because obviously the race dried out towards the end, then it settled down into more of a typical Monaco. But turns out, and I was watching Ted's Notebook last night, that actually part of the reason for a lot of the delays, because it was absolutely hammering it down. There were stages where it wasn't going to be safe to send cars out racing. Fair enough. But there were issues with the starting lights, weren't there? Water interfering, apparently. And I know Matt, Mr. Technical, knows what goes on behind the scenes. Do you have any more insight for us?
It was basically like that, yeah. So the guys didn't really predict that the rain was going to be so heavy. They knew rain was going to be covering in, but it wasn't just the starting light procedures. There's also in the TV compound that midway through the race, which we heard on the commentary, lost entire power. They do have backup systems in place, which are just separate generators just off the circuit, but obviously they do take a while to actually start up and then go forward. But what happened at the start there, the power supply to the start lights, which is all controlled from the FIA, just went completely out. And that was that was the first delay of when it was being sort of red flagged, when all the start got delayed, sorry. But by that point, during that 10 minutes is when we started to see heavy downpour. Because obviously when they first went onto the grid, seeing Brundle's grid walk, and it was still quite dry. But then during that time, the heavens opened up, and that's why we saw all the pit crews running down with their trolleys of tyres, because they needed to quickly change it. So because of all the sudden change of weather, that then the FI had to delay it even further to allow teams to actually make the changes. But I think also that wasn't the first technical issue we saw the whole weekend. I know we can talk about it a little bit later, the whole issue of the Automobile Club de Monaco and the whole licensing with it. And obviously this was the one weekend where the Automobile Club had to show to Formula One, we can do a great event.
Mate, that's what I mean. Absolutely, because again, it wasn't even just the things that were going wrong, Aldas. It was just there was a lack of communication. We didn't find out about these things until afterwards. It was just kind of radio silence, just sat there waiting for rain that, it seemed to be drying up, and we were just sat there.
I think that was the big frustration, to be honest. The thing is, if they relayed that to the fans, if they said, look, there's a problem with the start lights, we have to sort this out, that would be so much better, because we were so in the dark. We were wondering, even the commentary box was what's going on? Why are we not racing? Is this genuinely just down to the weather? And at one point, I think it was 10 minutes in of us still not racing, it wasn't even raining. All of the videos showed that there was absolutely no rain, and we were still wondering what's going on. Obviously, people are wondering, what's going on with the FIA? Why we've not got the race started? And I think it comes down to that communication again. I don't know why they didn't tell us. Maybe they need someone in the FIA that's literally to do with comms and can actually relay that information out, because no doubt about it that the race steward is probably busy sorting this out and communicating with loads of different people. But yeah, it doesn't make the FIA look good, even though it's not actually their fault. But then it also doesn't make Monaco look good, because Monaco is the special race in terms of they have full control over everything, in terms of the marshals, in terms of the way the race is obviously shown as well. They have their own broadcast station, so. And this is a critical year. We might get into it at the end of the video in terms of Monaco's place on the calendar, but this was not a year where you wanted to show incompetence if you're Monaco. So it's not a good look. I think the race kind of saved it a little bit, but the communication was not great.
Well, it was a double pronged thing, wasn't it, Hayden? Because you had the lack of communication. Crofty was talking about how kind of Freitas hasn't got experience, and it's it's nothing to do with Freitas actually. In the end, it was to do with this light panel, but because there wasn't the communication. Throughout the qualifying and practice sessions, we saw weird ass graphics and things not looking properly. You had a Monaco mini circuit showing up because it didn't show. It felt and there's so much chat around Monaco potentially, because the deal's next year is the last year it's going to be on the calendar.
I don't think they do
now
have one
anyway.
For 2023.
No, this was the last one on contracted one. Yeah,
even less. That's what I mean. Do you think that this? I don't know, where do you sit with it now? Because I don't know, I feel like I'm in the ballpark where it's I think Monaco needs F1 more than F1 needs Monaco, I'll be honest.
Nah, you're wrong. Monaco has to stay.
Well, I'm not.
Monaco has to stay, 100%.
But does the sport need it?
Yes, of course it does.
No,
it's history. It's
definitely
iconic.
not.
You've got to go back and look at your roots all the time. You can't just forget where you came from. Monaco is an iconic part of Formula One, and it wasn't even boring. Qualifying was exciting all the way through. The race was exciting all the way through. Yeah, okay, there's a few things they need to change. They need to sort out the race director and all that stuff. Why do we need the Monaco people to sort that out? We can just give that to the people who do it on a regular basis. That stuff needs to be changed 100%. But it's an easy fix. It doesn't mean, okay, the race director needs to be fired, let's go somewhere else. No.
# bring back Mazzy.
Every street circuit that we go to is never going to be as good as Monaco, because every street circuit that we go to is 90 degree right, 90 degree left here, fast straight. There is no street circuit that is fast flowing where you get in between the barriers. You watch an onboard through Sector 3 and it is the best onboard of the season. So Monaco stays.
But I think the issue,
if you think Monaco has to go, it's bin day today, go put yourself in a bin and wait for them.
I don't think it's
wrong.
I don't think it's an issue.
That's not what I
though.
said, Hayden. That's not my question.
I don't think it's an issue of if we think the track is good or not. Basically, the issue you've got is that the Automobile Club de Monaco looks after the whole event of Monaco, and that's due to Monegasque law. So they have to control all the camera operators, all the race direction, and also the whole broadcast. And that's the issue we got with it. Obviously, Formula One looks at this, and every year it's a joke. They know it's a running theme. Literally, last year, with the Stroll replay meme, where at a pivotal moment or when we're about to see an overtake, they cut to a replay. It's the issues like that which make Formula One look really bad, but it's not Formula One's like fault because it's just due to monogas law. And the issue here is obviously Formula One want that changed, but the Automobile Club don't want to do that. So you've got this fight of like, okay, well, maybe we don't need to race in Monaco because it does bring a lot of value to the Principality. But then also, as you say, Hayden, the history there, it's so big and vital to it. So that's the issue. It's not about if the actual racing element is good or not. It's actually just the actual event itself because
they're going to have to compromise. They're going to have to compromise, otherwise they're losing it.
In terms of Tomo actually said, like, does Formula One need Monaco or does Monaco need Formula One? That's the reason why they still don't have a contract, because Formula One are looking. There was also apparently some sponsor stuff. Apparently Monaco themselves signed a big sponsorship deal that was in complete, I think, conflict with a Formula One sponsor as well. So all of these things are going on in the background, and Formula One's not happy about it. Like, Monaco are not clearly doing a good enough job. They're also doing like, deals behind their backs, which are not very good for F1 themselves. And that's why the conversation comes back, of course Monaco needs Formula One. That the amount of revenue that is, that comes in from Formula One for that tiny country that's basically just one town, they need Formula One. But again, with all of this incompetence, with the fact that the fans don't really seem to love it anymore, it doesn't actually seem that. I mean, I really want Monaco to stay on the calendar, by the way. I think we did a track review a few months ago. I gave it a 10 because I think it's an absolute classic, but it doesn't necessarily mean that Formula One are going to put up with Monaco if they don't kind of go in the direction that Liberty Media want them to do. So to kind of answer Tomo's question from a few minutes back, of course, kind of Monaco needs Formula One, but F1 doesn't need Monaco with the way it is at the moment. And that's the conflict at the moment.
The specialist relationship, it kind of reminds me a bit of the old Ferrari special relationship, which I think that's been a constant negotiation over recent years because, Ferrari used to get all these extra pay. It's like Monaco's got this, that they get this extra treatment because it's the historical race. But again, I think, F1's putting itself into a place with, Vegas coming, Miami. You've got these more, you've got glamorous Grand Prix elsewhere now, whereas Monaco was the only glamorous Grand Prix. You don't have to go that far back for it to be the only glamorous Grand Prix on the grid. But that box is ticked by others. That's why I'm concerned, because I'd love Monaco to stay. Let us know if you're watching YouTube in the comments below. What do you think? Do you think the sport needs Monaco? That's the thing. I guess that's an important question, because we talk about tracks a lot of the time that, Spa, Silverstone, these iconic tracks that should never go. Should Monaco be one of them? Should that be, are you fearful that we might lose the Monaco Grand Prix? Because I do hope not. Like, I hope this doesn't happen.
I hope not.
But anyway, eventually we got to racing after the rain passed through. Behind safety, so we didn't get a standing start at all through the race. Again, it turns out afterwards, because we thought the second time around, didn't we, that they would start standing start. Didn't happen. Race started, and I mean, I know Lando was talking afterwards about how it was one of the scariest races of his life. It was Monaco in the wet with the extreme wets, as they kept calling them, the tyres. I mean, there was some. I guess we've got to start with the Canadians, haven't we?
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought you were going to mention it.
Hayden, should we start with the Canadians?
Don't know what you're on about.
I do.
Look, it just, it just showed how sketchy it was, though. The fact that Stroll hit the wall and Latifi kind of almost ended his race.
Was that the first one?
That was formation. That was technically the formation lap, but it was on lap 1.
Yeah, that was like the formation.
The first one before the red flag.
The race hadn't even started yet.
Yeah, like literally the first formation lap.
Yeah, lap
was like
1
another
formation.
one after. Yeah, that track was not suitable. Like, before that, when the delays were happening, I was like, what's wrong with it? It's barely raining. Like, let's just get on with this. Like, come on. You're racing drivers, and they all wanted to get going. I was like, why is this being delayed for so long? I didn't know about all the light stuff, and, I only really found out
no one did.
literally 5 minutes ago from you guys. But then when we got outgoing, you could see that when a car was driving, you could see behind them, there wasn't like a dry area behind the wheel forming. It was just a puddle, like the whole track. So it was not suitable to go racing at all at that point. So, it's only fitting that the two Canadians are the one that's that. Because I was literally taking the piss out of Latifi, and then they showed shot of Stroll, like, that's karma. But yeah, I mean, it could have happened to anyone, and
but it didn't, though, did it?
Well,
it could have happened to Leclerc and Verstappen, the two title protagonists. But it happened to the two guys who are kind of a little bit under pressure, if we're being honest. Like, do you know what I mean?
The cherry on top would have been
One of them's
Sainz.
under pressure. The other one is
Actually,
got a contract
Stroll's there
for
for
life.
life.
So yeah, don't worry about
I
it.
mean, that's fair.
He could do whatever he wanted. He could have done some donuts and he'd be fine.
But yeah, literally, if Sainz had also gone off as well, I think that would have been the cherry on top. But I think, yeah, especially down at the hairpin, ironically, it's like it didn't have much drainage. Didn't seem like that around most of the track. It just seemed like the puddles were just sort of stationary and weren't really being moved off or anything. It was a bit sketch. I do disagree though that like we do have wet tires for a reason, and like
Yeah, but that's too wet.
But
That's when aquaplaning happens. If the car is level with where the water is, the tyres aren't touching the tarmac, and then you're just aquaplaning. It's dangerous. You can't go racing.
The thing is, as well, these cars are more susceptible to aquaplaning because they don't have the rake anymore.
Yeah.
So they're more susceptible to bottoming out, which Ricciardo found out in qualifying, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
just because the setup was way too low. But even then, though, like I was surprised they didn't like put the safety car out. You know, like, as they did before, just try and like move some of the water off. I was especially on Bert's birthday as well, like giving some like laps around.
Giving him some laps.
Yeah.
I think literally,
Bert
I think that would have been what would have been like one of the first ways to actually start to dissipate some of the water getting it properly off. Just having a car go around, actually seeing what the levels are, if it is safe to drive or not. So I was a bit confused again, like why that wasn't happening. I think we all were, because yeah, the drivers were complaining over the radio saying, why aren't we racing yet? So I was surprised that the safety car didn't sort of go around when everyone was sort of stationary still in the pit lane. But yeah, it was also a bit weird as well in terms of communication, where like the first 3 laps were kind of behind the safety car, so it's kind of like, okay, lights out have gone and we are racing, but we're still...
there wasn't that big build-up, was there?
Yeah,
really?
exactly that. So it was just a bit confusing of like thinking, okay, the race now has started, but then when the race did start, you know, we saw Leclerc have actually a really good send-off, really, literally out of the last corner, and then I think within a lap or two he was already like 4 seconds ahead. I think it was. I don't know if he got caught napping or if everyone else got caught napping or anything like that. Or
Yeah, I feel like Charles was doing a good job out front, kind of building a bit of a gap to Carlos. But I mean, I was quite pleasantly surprised by how clean they kind of most of the field was able to keep it, given how sketchy the conditions were out there. Like, because I think that was, you know, there was the fear going into it that we'd see kind of. I was getting Spa flashbacks. I'm not going to lie. I was really concerned that this race wasn't going to go ahead at some points because of the drainage, I suppose, because we're not used to this at Monaco, are we?
And especially given the fact that I think, and it was the FIA steward that actually, said this, they hadn't done any wet running at all. I mean, it was all dry throughout practice and qualifying. This was their first wet weather run, was in a competitive session, lap 1 of the race. So very sketchy. It always gets the butterflies going. Even as a fan watching, I'm just like, oh my God, this looks sketchy. But they're the best drivers in the world. You know, the extreme wet tires are there. That's what it's all about. And ultimately, we saw with like Leclerc's pace. I mean, yes, it was very wet, but there was plenty of performance there in the track. It wasn't as if like they couldn't race on it, but it was I think it was really exciting. It was a bit frustrating that I think it literally took like an hour until we actually got the first lap of the actual race, once we finished all the red flags and the formation laps. But yeah, I feel like it was a good kind of... It gave the race something, and I actually quite like it, because again, it gives us that unpredictability. It gives us that kind of, we don't know what's going to happen, and the worst place to be sometimes is leading, because you can't call the strategy. So, and yeah, Leclerc definitely found that one out.
I was gonna say, Hayden, like that. I mean, I think the first person to go onto, was it Gasly? I think he was the first to go onto Inters and was doing quite well. But yeah, obviously, exactly as Aldas said, like Ferrari's out in front. Red Bull played the strategy game to perfection, really, didn't they?
Yes, but also so did Sainz. Like, I was 100% agreeing with Sainz throughout the whole time that he was saying, oh, no, I don't want to pit, I want to stay on wets and go to dries. We saw it in 2016. Lewis Hamilton, I know he only really jumped Ricciardo because they didn't have the tyres ready in 2016, but, sorry to bring back flashbacks, Matt, but,
God damn it.
you know, he did that strategy and it paid off for him because it put him back in the fight with Ricciardo, and Sainz did it again here, you know. I think that what cost them this time around was that the overcut was powerful when you switched it to the wets, but the undercut, so the other way, the undercut was powerful when you switched to inters, but the overcut was powerful when you switched to the dries, because with the hard tyres, it just took a lot longer for them to get up to temperature. So if you were still out on these intermediates, like the two Red Bull drivers were, you were a lot quicker at that stage, and that's how they jumped them. So it was great strategy from Sainz, ruined by Ferrari going too early onto the dries. But, you know, I got to give credit to Sainz because I fully agreed with him when he was saying, don't come in. And when Charles pitted, I knew he was going to be angry with it, but it wasn't the team's call. The team was telling Sainz to box, and he was just like, I'm not boxing. You can call me in all you want. You can get the pit crew ready all you want, but I'm not coming in. And it was the right call.
Yeah, it's like that executive decision. I don't know. Where does it sit with you, Matt, in terms of the balance of... Because, again, I think, obviously, yeah, Charles could have done the same as Carlos and refused to come in for the Inters, but I don't know, it's easy to say in hindsight, but I feel like the buck stops with Ferrari, surely.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, you got to remember as well, like, the drivers really do have to trust the teams with, like, the strategy, because they've got so much more data than what the driver has. The driver is just concentrated on their own race, whereas it's all the other strategy teams, either at Monaco or back in their home base, looking at everyone and seeing what's working best. So if your strategist is telling you to box straight away, you are doing basically what it is. And it's great that, you know, Sainz did have that forefront, and it was correct in that one instance. But then just imagine if it wasn't the case, if he did swap over and then it fell flat, it would be slam dunk straight onto him, and Ferrari would have hated that. But unfortunately,
you're a hero if you pull it off. You're a clown if you don't.
And we've seen it before with other cases where, you know, drivers, they think they can have a good tyre strategy, they swap it over and it hasn't worked for whatever reason. I think Sainz, great call from him to get it done, but unfortunately, with Ferrari's case on the other side of the garage, it's literally it's just massive pain on them, because it's just clear dunk. They lost Leclerc this race because it's just all down to strategy. You can tell the frustration he had, and even after the race, Leclerc was saying no words to the team over the radio, just so frustrated. I think we all were.
He was seething when he held us. He was seething.
I saw, no, I didn't see. I heard the uncensored version of his radio, and it was pain, mate. Like, you could just hear in his voice, he was like, what is going on here? Like, why have you just done that? And, like, I mean, it's a weird one, because also, by the way, both of the Ferraris, like, I don't know if you guys saw, but they got massively hampered by both of the Williams. Alex Albon on the Leclerc side, and also Latifi on the Sainz, like on their outlaps. I think it was Sainz on the on his dry tyre, and then I think it was Leclerc on the Inter. Massive, like, there was blue flags, and none of the Williams were getting out of the way. And I think it was actually Albon that came out after the race, and he was like, "Yeah, I don't care that I had blues," or something like that. And I was just like, I mean, that kind of needs to be looked at. You know, I mean, like, you can't be set. You've got blue flags for a reason, and they literally got held up for about a lap. So
I will be the first to admit Albon had a proper bozo race yesterday.
And
that's why you left early. That was the real reason. You know, you're like, I'm done. See you later.
I was starting to well up, so I was like, I can't do it anymore. No, that was that. We'll talk about that later. I think we'll talk about that in the head-to-heads, because I don't know what he was doing, to be honest. Like, don't get me wrong, I love him, but I don't endorse.
Latifi did it to Sainz as well, though. So I don't know if it was like what was going on there, but the Ferrari. So they did get compromised a little bit. But yeah.
Shut up, Matt. Ricardo, right? You can't say anything, okay? I'm just saying. To be honest, like, I think, the buck has to stop with Ferrari. Obviously, you see on the onboard, they call him in for hards. And then I just don't understand. I don't think we've had clarification, like, externally from Ferrari why that initial call came in. Because it does seem a bit, you know, they would have had to double stack. It's like double stacking at Monaco as well, when pit timing is so critical. Even that on its own, you think that's a bit questionable. Yeah, but I mean, Leclerc still lost time. Like, you can see from his onboard, he wasn't able to slide straight into the pit. He did have to hold back a bit. So I don't know what Ferrari were doing. It seems the Hex is still alive and well. And you know what? Like, I don't typically believe in these kind of things, that he's got, like, there's a curse or anything. But that's now 6 Monaco races he's done.
Like, we haven't even got to the end race, but
he did finish it. He didn't even get a podium, man. And he was like literally on top. I mean, it's a step in the right direction, I suppose, but still, I guess. So obviously we had all that happen. Sergio Perez came out in front, which was.
Can I actually just say, by the way, absolutely no one was talking about it on the broadcast. By the way, I saw it. I was like, hang on a minute, Perez is also on the Inter, but he's just jumped Leclerc. Not a single person on Sky was mentioning it. I was like, Leclerc's literally just lost this race, and no one is even talking about it. I was like, what is going on here?
There was clear kind of shock, and I think in the commentary box they didn't quite catch that. And you know, I think as well, you know, where Sergio's performances have kind of gone under the radar. To be honest, I think he hasn't been as much as noticed as he should be. But it wasn't long after that then we saw a pretty big shunt from a Mr. Mick Schumacher, and that was, I mean, he was saying on the radio, for me, like watching it, he just kind of got a little bit wide. You can see kind of the line he took in, and then obviously treads on the brakes when there is a dry line and a dry line only. But I mean, as there's a few drivers across the grid who really need some good performances, and I feel like Mick Schumacher's one of them. And unfortunately, Matt, it's another hefty bill for Haas.
Yeah,
budget cap as well. Not good.
It does now raise up the conversation of like Mick's sort of future with the team, because he's having this reputation now. It's easy to joke at the Canadians and to Sainz, like always putting into the wall or crashing or anything like that. But then Mick also needs to be part of that conversation and actually kind of be at the forefront, because it's yet again another big crash for the team. And they've talked about it before. They can't really afford it because of the budget caps they've got, but also because of the lack of budget. And this is not like a quick fix. The whole car split in half. Don't know if that's just due to the design of the car, but
yeah,
it's fully written off. That I'm sure that like the whole chassis and everything inside is going to have to be replaced. And I'm worried that we're going to come to a point of the season where, like, if we see another crash like this from Mick Schumacher, then I'm worried that Haas just literally might not even have like the parts to help him out anymore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Hayden, you said it in backseat. Like, he's Jeddah was ultimately, it was an unfortunate, but it was on him. He did it on his own. Another kind of heart-stopping accident for Mick Schumacher. That's not good.
Mick Schumacher's got a big fan base, and I'm going to upset a lot of people here, but I'm going to keep on banging this drum. He needs to, have a look at what he's doing, because it's not good enough. It's not good enough. At the moment, he's got to be worried about that seat. I don't know about the future of Zhou in Alpha, because I know Thieu Pourchaire is very much pipped for that seat if he has a really good F2 season. But at the moment, I'd 100% pick Zhou over Schumacher. Schumacher hasn't had extremely amazing performances this season. I can't think of a race where I'd be like, you have done an incredible job today. Because it's, compared to his teammate, he's not there. He's not there. It was quite funny, actually, though, where Magnussen literally retired just before that, and it was just not talked about at all. I was just like, well, all of a sudden, Magnussen's out, and then you see the car in a crash, and Magnussen's looking at the TV, just like, what the fuck is he doing?
Literally as well.
It's just, Zhou, literally, he's had one crash, and that is in the sprint race going wheel to wheel with Gasly, and I think that was a racing incident between the two of them, because they were both side by side for a high speed or medium speed corner. But that's one bin in how many races and sessions. Like, he's had a few failures. He's had a bit of bad luck as Zhou so far this season. And for me, he's got to be looking over his shoulder for other people who are going to be potentially taking that seat, because Haas might be looking at that going, Zhou's bringing in money and also is not taking it away from us by crashing the car every weekend.
I mean, it's what do you think, Aldas? Because I think there's been glimpses of one lap pace. I think in quali he was only a 10th off of Kev. So I think there, in terms of pace, it is there at times. But again, I think we're seeing a driver who had a really unhelpful rookie season with a bozo teammate, and he wasn't really able to learn at the back of the grid. And I think that's shining through right now.
This was unbelievable. Like that should not have happened. And like, I think he's basically gone. I had to double check because he still hasn't scored any points, and that is just ridiculous in that car. Like that cannot be happening.
Hulkenberg and Latifi. You shouldn't be on the same level as those two.
Latifi. By the way, can we just say Hulkenberg above Latifi? Let's just mention that one real quick.
Yeah.
This is unbelievable. Are we even a third of the way through the season, and he's already had two massive crashes and two chassis like that. That's two chassis gone. Now that's unbelievable in terms of the money that's going to cost. That doesn't even account for like all of the crashes that he had last year, which kind of went under the radar because obviously Mazepin was crashing as well. Now, I think it was Matt that mentioned Sainz as well, that he had a lot of crashes in his first season at Ferrari last year, but he's someone who actually has the performance to back it up. Like with Sainz, yes, he's going to bin the car at some point because he's always kind of trying to find the limit, and we saw that last year, but he brings the performance and he brings the points. Schumacher is he's having a horrible season, and this is really bad for him. Like, I really want Mick to be good. He's such a nice guy, obviously, and he is a good driver.
Is that just because of his name? Like,
No,
you just
nothing
want
to do
Mick
with his
be
name.
good?
To be honest, I don't really.
Bruno Senna at the end of the day, was put in the sport because he was Senna, and look what happened to him. He was
but the
nowhere
hang
near
on,
the
no.
pace.
But the difference is
Bruno
that
Senna.
you do have a
Memories.
back-to-back, like, what is it, Formula champion in terms of Formula 3 and Formula 2. So
Yeah, but
it's
with
not as if
the best
Mick
team
doesn't.
in the Formula Series,
I'm not even
only
going to get
just-
into that. Like, are we having like a Prema tax like podcast now? What's going on here? But the point is
just throw it
that,
out there.
of course, the guy has pace. Of course, he's a good driver. There's no doubt about it. But this was the season to really step up. And I think I've actually talked about this on every single podcast. If Magnussen wasn't there, if Magnussen was not the barometer, everyone would say that Haas is like at the back with Aston Martin and Williams, and they're just not.
a good point.
He's getting found out quite a lot, and I think he's got maybe 5 races to save his career because he's already. I didn't even know how much it's going to cost for the team. 2 chassis in a third of a season is ridiculous. So
And I think
he's going to have to
you said
sell a
it
lot more
best
boats.
there.
That's for sure.
I think and I think you said
It's
it
on the fourth one.
some more boats. I think you said it good there. I think you said it perfect there. That Mick Schumacher is a good driver, but Formula One needs great drivers. We've seen this with Magnussen and also with Albon as well. Coming in, having some time out from the sport to a brand new car which they haven't driven before, and they've outperformed their teammate, and that's such a bad look on them. It makes them it's really embarrassing for them. And Albon's done a great
Reminds
job,
me
and so's
of
Magnussen done.
the team radio, Albon to Latifi or Latifi to Albon. Follow Albon, you might learn something.
Oh, that's quality.
But as you said before, Magnussen, for example, he's had time out of the sport. He's come in and he's done absolutely bits, and there's no conversation to sort of have of Mick Schumacher is a good driver, but Formula One is deserving the best of the best, and unfortunately, I don't think he's hitting that threshold.
Yeah, that name's only going to. It wasn't that long ago. Bonotto was talking about Schumacher potentially being lined up for Ferrari seat in 24, 25 maybe, and I think that is now. That's a pipe dream now.
Mate,
it's gonna take
I'm
him-
closer to that Ferrari drive at the moment than Mick is. I'm telling you that now.
Which is kind of a good thing for Sainz, because where Sainz has been having a difficult start, there was already chat of Ferrari already lining up Sainz's replacement, but it seems that Mick, unfortunately, which again, look, I agree with you guys, he seems like a lovely kid, he's shown a very occasionally good pace, but again, with this cost cap, you can't afford drivers who are sticking it in the wall every week. And yes, I know Joe has been, I think he's been quite far off Valtteri in these last few races. Yep. He's been very unlucky as well with car problems, but he's not been binning it. And that's just so important because you can get the mileage. That's what you need. And I don't know if Mick's over driving. I'm not sure what it is. I hope for him he can turn it around. But again, there's such a plethora of young drivers available, chomping at the bit. Haas, the American team on the grid, really start going back to embracing their Americanness, hopefully. Maybe a Colton Herter. I don't know. There's loads of young drivers who could potentially be getting that seat. So Mick needs to switch it up. All right, so he obviously Mick binned it. Red flag. Well, not red flag, actually. You know what?
That was weird.
I thought this was...
I think technically it was. It wasn't red flag. It was... I think it did get...
Well, no, it was safety car, wasn't
it was
it?
safety
car,
flag.
and then
they just dragged...
Then it was
because
red
it's
flag.
a track like Monaco, they were able to recover the car so quickly. So again, that's obviously credit to the marshals because they're some of the best in the world at Monaco. But also, I guess, because it's such a short, confined track, they've got 13 cranes. So I was shocked they were able to recover that Haas. They did. We went racing again, and Sergio kept ahead. It was one of them as well. It was so... Look, obviously, Sergio won the race, and I'm gassed for Sergio. It was a shame because of the lighting issue. We should have been able to do a standing start, and that could have been
I think the second standing start was not because of the lights this time. I think it was because there's a dry and a wet line, and it's just dangerous. When you're on dries, the people who are on the wet line, obviously, they're going to be...
Had it not dried enough by then?
No, there was just one dry line still. So you have the wet part of the track that people would be starting on. The wheels would be spinning. You're going to get a bad start. It's not horrendous, but then when you go down into turn one, you're side by side. You're going to get
from an entertainment point of view, but from a racing point of view, probably
it would have just been
too fair.
Carnage.
But alas,
done it.
I mean, look, if Aldas was in charge, you would have done it, mate.
Well, Mick Schumacher's out of the race, so it wasn't too much of an issue down at turn one. So
Lance Stroll was still in. He was still racing.
I don't know what you're on about.
He was. Exactly. He only scraped his wheel cap.
He just gave a little kiss,
Yeah, Lovely. But yeah, the race restarted. And to be honest, I mean, obviously, I dipped fairly soon after this, but, as far as I'm aware, in terms of, it stayed as is. Sergio kept ahead. Fernando produced a massive train. Joe pulled out the save of the century. And Sergio Perez won the race. Matt, what more can I say?
Only other thing is obviously Ocon getting a penalty with some questionable defending against Hamilton. I think Hamilton was having no luck with both Alpines because he was stuck behind Ocon, then he was stuck behind Alonso.
No love lost there.
Literally the widest car ever possible. But yeah, like there's now been some onboard footage of like Ocon's defending, basically putting
from the
Hamilton
rear camera as well.
From the rear camera, and so we only saw on the broadcast the first instance of Ocon with his harsh defending, but then there was another offence, which I believe is what he actually got his 5-second penalty for, where there was contact and it does look like Hamilton almost went into the wall going into turn 1, which could have caused yet again another red flag because both of them would have gone into the temporary barriers. But then, Alonso just knowing the car wasn't quite there with him, so he just made himself as wide as possible. And there's a great photo online showing the track map of all the front runners on one section of the track and everyone else on the other side just stuck behind because it's just impossible to overtake.
It was the team radio from Bono. It was just like how far the drivers in front. It was just like, I think you should be worried about how close they are coming behind you now.
I think I actually saw on the classification, I think Fernando finished behind Lando, and I think the gap was like 32 seconds, 36
seconds.
Yeah, something like that. It was like 32 or 36, and like
it was fair play.
And it was getting worrying
why he
for
does it, though, like, do you know what I mean? I don't get it. None of us are Formula One drivers, but we can blatantly see that sort of time management was not necessary.
I feel like maybe it could have been communication from the team. Maybe he thought if I back him up into Ocon can get him here, but not knowing about the penalty for Ocon.
But that's even worse.
So maybe it's something like that.
But that's even worse. Like I said before we started recording, like if Fernando actually, by the way, he went 4 seconds a lap quicker at the end of the race. Like he pulled out one lap that was 4 seconds quicker. That was just like, right, that's his actual pace. But like he could have actually helped his team out in terms of like if he made a gap to the rest of the grid. I think it was Seb that was behind Ocon. If perhaps Esteban could have got a 5-second gap to Sebastian, it could have been a double point score. So I love Fernando, but he just has these moments. I don't know what was going through his head. Maybe it was a bit of a kind of Hamilton agenda, but it was just, I think it was needless, to be honest.
I don't know. Conspiracy theory, Ocon's been scoring a lot more points than Alonso so far this season. So he's like, do you know what? I need to put him back a bit to make myself look a bit better. If I make sure that this penalty gets him out of the points.
But I mean, like, if
Fernando loves teammate mind games.
But like, if I was Alonso and I've been told Ocon's got a 5-second penalty and we need to sort of get ahead, like, if you are wanting to help out your teammate, I would think then you do want to then hold up Hamilton, so then you've got a better chance to pass him. Otherwise, if you do extend the lead, then you're not going to have much, not going to be close to
but you're not
as
passing
much.
anyone around.
But I think,
a
balance between Ocon, maybe getting, still a P10 and maybe getting a point and keeping those gaps big versus giving him the opportunity to potentially pass Hamilton, which I don't think was, was likely. Yeah. Also, in terms of the penalty, obviously, because it was misleading, really, I think, from the broadcast, because, I was still watching when, we saw the whole where Lewis tried to go up the inside into turn 1, wasn't alongside enough to be, to be owed the space as far as I was concerned. But then that's the one that we all seem to think was being penalised for the 5 second, but it was the squeeze into the wall. So I think the first one, for me, racing incident. Second one, definitely a penalty for Ocon. Would you agree, boys?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the wall squeeze, so
he hasn't seen the race, mate. He hasn't seen the race.
What happened yesterday?
Yeah, because
you're meant to be awake, Caden.
I think also because on the broadcast, because we kept hearing Hamilton's radio being like, "Nah, that's not cool. Report it." And a lot of us were just like, "No, mate, you weren't alongside him." But that's the only one we saw. But if we saw that replay, all of us would be like, "No, absolutely slam dunk penalty."
Yeah, slam dunk.
And then that's what happened. So
I don't know why Ocon was complaining so much about it, because that's that is a slam. That kind of gave me Ocon Perez vibes from the Force India days when they used to squeeze each other into walls for fun. Talking to Perez, he won. Which, you know what, like, they played the strategy. He was quicker than Verstappen for most of the weekend. He was, it was tight at the end. All 4 of them were within 2 seconds, second and a half. But Sergio Perez wins the Monaco Grand Prix. I was super happy for him. because I think, especially after last weekend where he definitely was a bit shafted by the team. There's no question. And I know Horner's come out now and said, we're giving both drivers equal opportunity. But I think, Sergio took the opportunity by the scruff of the neck. And, it's not easy when you've got, Carlos Sainz was breathing down his neck for those last few laps. Sergio stayed ahead. Aldas, what do you think? Happy?
I am always happy whenever Checo has a good result, and especially when he gets a win. I've had a lot of stock in Sergio Perez. He was my driver of the season in 2020. That was massively controversial at the time. I still go back to the fact that the guy mid-2020 didn't even have a seat, didn't even have a future in Formula 1. And I always knew that he was a quality driver. Like, his story is like, he is almost like he's the pay driver that actually went on to, maybe it wasn't the world champion pay driver, like likes of Lauda, but like, he actually grinded his way up the grid into a top seat. He had an okay season at Red Bull in 2021. It wasn't great, but there were some highlights where he picked up the pieces when everything was dropped. And now he's really comfortable. He's never going to beat Max over the course of the season because he doesn't have the consistency. He doesn't have the raw pace. Like across a 23-24 race season, he's never going to, kind of outscore Max, but he's picking them up when he can. And he's doing the job on track. He's not a liability in terms of crash damages. So he's just a solid driver. 8 out of 10 performance every single race, basically across the season. And he's just, he just gets on with the job. Like, he doesn't, I've always kind of said about Sergio that he's not the guy that's massively loved online because he doesn't have this massive personality or following kind of outside of Mexico. But yeah, he's doing the job. And I mean, now only 5 points behind Leclerc, and that's consistency right there. So yeah, especially in the constructors, this is massive because the championship is going to come down to Leclerc or Verstappen. We know that. But the constructors, I mean, Red Bull are looking strong, and yeah, what a race to win. Everyone, just one last thing. Everyone always says, Monaco's so boring and all of that, but ask Sergio Perez, how it feels to not be able to overtake around Monaco, and you will see what kind of answer he gives you. So, yeah, very happy to see Sergio win it.
Good. There's nothing quite like Sergio Perez's smile, I think, Matt. I think he just looks so chuffed. He did the front flip into the pool as well. It was great because he just walks up the stairs and just jumps straight in. He doesn't even really think about it. He just straight in, boom,
absolutely.
Job done.
And I think the one thing we were all hoping was to see was his dad. Like, we all remember the images of him in Mexico, but all of us kind of wanted his dad there holding the Mexican flag. And that's one thing I actually really enjoyed seeing. Down just before the tunnel, the marshals, just before the tunnel entry, the marshals there have all the flags of all the nationalities, so they were able to give Checo his flag, waving it down. And I said on Backseat Driver that that's going to be a photo in his house, him in Monaco holding the Mexican flag, because, like, let's say he did win in Barcelona, I think Monaco would have meant more to him. Like, having that, like, truly historic trophy in his trophy cabinet, I think it really means something to win something around Monaco, even if, like, yeah, there wasn't loads of overtaking or anything like that. To have that win for him is so, so nice. But obviously Hayden's a massive fan of Monaco, so what do you think of Perez winning?
Perez win. I was so happy. Before the race started, well, even qualifying, I wanted Perez on pole because I thought he was hard done by in Spain. To be taken away that race win this early on in the season because of team orders, I just think is wrong. When you've got a driver who is kind of still in the fight, like he's only 15 points off of Max now. I just did the maths quickly whilst you were talking, and if Perez had won Spain, he would be 1 point off of Verstappen and 1 point ahead of Leclerc. So he would be straight up in this fight. So they have shafted him there in Spain, in all fairness.
Did they though? Like, did he really have the pace?
Yes.
He wasn't allowed to overtake to go and attack Russell. Wouldn't have been stuck behind them lot for ages. And
I guess we'll never know.
So many times.
That's the question.
We'll never know.
Yeah, that's the right one.
We'll never know.
If in this alternate universe, he would have been 1 point behind and 1 point ahead. So, but yeah, it was massive for him. And like I said at the start, I've been a bit of a critique of Perez because I think that he's just been doing the job that he is supposed to do as a driver in Red Bull. You're supposed to be aiming for podiums. If you're doing an amazing job, you're beating Max Verstappen. And now he is on that similar level. He is beating Max Verstappen in the last 2 races. So, yeah. It's absolutely massive for him.
It's because he wiped the floor with Stroll, isn't it? It's because he wiped the floor with Stroll 2 years in a row. You can just say it, we all know it.
Get in the bin, mate. Get in the bin.
The bitterness is clear and present, Hayden. But there we go. Sergio Perez won. Head-to-head time now. We'll rack through this quickly. because we've been in fifth. We talk for a long time. There's four of us.
Do a lot
to
of
be
waffle.
fair. So this is going to happen. All right. First of all, I guess start with Red Bull. We'll go. I'll give mine then. So I'll go. We'll go me, Matt, Aldas, Hayden. Go through Red Bull. Starting head to head. Sergio Perez. Absolutely. Most of the weekend seemed to be more on top of the car than Max, and finished ahead of him. Easy. Perez.
Yeah, same for me. Perez, I think slam dunk. I think it's, he did, as Ada said, he did everything he was meant to do on the day. Clear winner of it, and easy one for me.
Yeah, it's got to be Checo Perez. There is a bit of crashing out in Q3 tax there, but you've got to set the lap. You've got to set the lap first, but and he
it works. It works.
Did it perfectly in the race as well. So yeah, Checo Perez.
Checo Perez as well. Easy one.
Easy. 4-0 to Sergio. Well done. Right. Ferrari. Ferrari, as much as Sainz did finish ahead of Charles, I don't know. To be fair, I think Carlos did step up. I think he was close to Charles all weekend, but Charles was kind of... Sainz did make a good call staying on the wets, but I am going to give it to Leclerc. He really should have won that race, and it wasn't really his fault that he didn't. So but credit to Sainz. I'm going to give it to Leclerc, but Sainz was much closer this weekend, which was nice to see.
Yeah, like they were very much. I think the performance for both of them, the gap between them is now definitely shrunk. I do have to give it to Leclerc. He didn't do anything wrong this weekend, and it's just down to the team in my opinion. And then like he had a good margin before any of those calls were made, and literally just due to the strategy. That's made it lose, but is Leclerc for me.
It's actually a bit tricky because Leclerc had the pace all weekend. I'm probably going to go with Leclerc, but the only thing I will say why maybe I'm going to give it to Sainz actually, but because he recognized that Ferrari, their strategy was not right. He made the decision himself, and that's what a driver can impact. He can choose whether to come into the pits or not. Leclerc chose to trust Ferrari, but Sainz knew from the beginning, I am not going on the track position. I'm going from wet to dry. So I'm going to give it to Sainz, but don't get me wrong, Leclerc, he had the pace all weekend long and he would have won that race. But just because he took the strategy into his own hands, that's no fault of Leclerc, obviously, but I'm going to give it to Sainz.
That's the same reason I'm going for Carlos Sainz as well. Leclerc might have been faster, but Sainz had the big brain strat. He had the head on him. And if it wasn't for Ferrari's strategy, going too early on the hards, Carlos Sainz would have been the race winner. He would have beaten Charles Leclerc because Sainz was ahead of him, regardless of anything. Sainz was ahead of Leclerc. So they screwed him over more in the strategy.
He was two steps ahead of the Ferrari's bottle job.
Fair enough. Room is split. Well, no, I can appreciate both sides, so I ain't got a problem with that. Right, Mercedes, George Russell, Lewis Hamilton. I think we've got us. I've got to say George, to be honest. I don't really George out qualified Lewis, didn't he?
Yeah.
I'm sure he did, didn't he? Yeah, he did. And brought the result home, P5, another top 5 finish.
Another one.
I don't think Lewis did too much wrong because, again, he was caught, stuck behind Esteban, stuck behind Fernando. But if I'm going to give it to anyone, I've probably got to give it to George.
Yeah,
literally. Say with your chest. George Russell.
Literally my prediction bang on perfect. George Russell, P5. Lewis Hamilton, he got stuck behind the Alpines and stayed in 8th where he qualified. George Russell moved up to 5th. I've got to give it to George. It's clear as day for me on that one.
King Russell for sure, no doubt about it. But I will say actually on Lewis, yes, he got a little bit unlucky in the race, but he made a mistake in qualifying because I read the qualifying report afterwards and he actually, because it was a bit weird, when I saw qualifying, he was ahead of George Russell on their runs and he moved out of the way just before the tunnel. And the reason he did that is because he didn't do a good enough lap and he started the lap on a wrong engine mode. So, obviously he was unlucky with the red flag to not get another run, but you've got to make those runs count. And that's on Lewis in the end of the day to be in the wrong engine mode and not out-qualify George. So yeah, he obviously, George out-qualified Lewis and then overtook Lando as well, which is good. And another top 5, mate. Another top 5. Mr. Consistency.
Another one.
PR63, absolutely bossing it, mate.
The more you know. Thank you for that information, Aldas Kravitz. I'm gonna go for George Russell as well. It's an easy one. My British bias will come out between these two. George Russell for me, easy.
Right, it's that time, Matt. McLaren, Lando Norris, Daniel Ricciardo.
He had this excuse. He had a ponytail.
Hey, at least my guy didn't bid it.
He did in practice.
So hang on. So it's
And that was due to the
Lando
team.
Norris, P5 in quali, and then
Yeah.
Daniel P14 finishing what? So Lando brought it home P6 in the end,
Just
and
behind
Daniel
Russell as well.
P13, 2/10 behind in the end. Fastest lap as well for Lando.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's Lando Norris. I think that again, obviously Daniel's this driver who he needs a good weekend, and it's yet another not good weekend where he's been convincingly outperformed by his teammate. Look, budget cap, McLaren can't afford to develop a car that works for Daniel when they've already got a car that works so well for Lando. That's just the way it is, and I'm concerned. But yeah, it's an easy dub for Lando. I really want Daniel to do well because I love him, but it's not looking good, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, at least he didn't get lapped this time, so take the small victories where you can.
You know what? You've got to take those.
Yeah, no, it's clearly got to go to Lando. I mean, like he had it might have been due to Lando's pace, but also because of the gap behind him to Alonso was about 30 seconds. So he said it to the team, I want to start pushing the car. If I do make a mistake, I've got that buffer. And then, yeah, he then came in to then swap onto the mediums, went for the fastest lap, and then literally, after having a 30-second gap to Russell, literally was 2/10 behind him on the start finishing line on the last lap. He literally P5, I think two more laps, maybe even could have got it there on better tyres. But yeah, it's unfortunately, for Russell. Unfortunately not for Russell, unfortunately for Ricciardo, having to prove yourself when you go straight into Monaco, it's going to be so hard. And having a crash in FP3 does knock your confidence. Some people are talking about the setup being too low for him and it being bottoming out. That's my opinion. But yeah, it's hard and it's a difficult one for him to bounce off his. But
Just raise
ultimately,
bottoms out. It's not Bottas.
but I mean, ultimately, it's not. At least he didn't make any mistakes in the race, unlike Stroll. But yeah, it's got to go to Norris in this one.
He literally finished one place ahead of Stroll, and they quite far away.
Exactly that. We're still ahead, so.
Come on, Aldas.
I mean, obviously it goes to Lando, and actually, really quickly, that was a bit of a bozo moment by Alonso again because of how slow he was driving. He basically gave the gap to Norris to pit again and go for the fastest lap. So he basically gave another point to McLaren, who are their rivals, but. Yeah, I mean, obviously, Lando did a great job all weekend long, but I've got a video actually this week coming out on Ricciardo because he's in trouble. Big plug. He's in trouble.
So do you, Tomo, don't you?
Does it? Oh, does he? There
Maybe.
we go. Back to back, check them out. But he's in trouble. He's in big trouble. The past week, there's been so many little sly comments and talks about potential contracts, whether they're going to run out or not. And when you look at that tight midfield and where McLaren wants to go, as good as Daniel Ricciardo is, and I do still believe that, I think it's kind of a bit of a Red Bull situation at the moment in terms of the car just isn't working for him, like it was with Albon and Gasly, and maybe he does need to move on. But yeah, I'm not even sure if he's going to be at that team, to be honest, next year because the vibes are just so weird at the moment. But yeah, he's still, the destiny is still in his hands to maybe improve, but it's not as if he's not trying, but time's running out.
Time is running out indeed. Lando Norris for me, I mean, it's an easy one. I think it's a shame for him because I think he made the call early to do what they ended up doing, pitting for mediums and just going for that attack. And if they listened to him, whether he would have overtaken Russell, it's Monaco. It's a classic track. We've seen it so many years that it is difficult to overtake here. I've got a video going out today about classic tracks that might be in F122. So I thought if we're all plugging, then I might as well plug as well.
Matt, do you have a Monaco video that you might want to plug?
Well, did you know they still hire scuba divers?
Matt's got more than enough views on his. He doesn't need to plug that.
Okay, anyway, back to what I was talking about. It's a shame he didn't have the chance to properly try and overtake. Whether he would have done it, who knows? But yeah, for Lando Norris, it's a really weird situation in McLaren because as much as I will bash Matt for Daniel Ricciardo, he's not a bad driver. He did such a great job in Red Bull, and even in Renault in second year, he did such a great job as well. So it's a weird one. Is Lando Norris just an amazing talent? Is the car better suited to Lando? Who knows? I guess Aldas is going to be looking into this in a video this week or something. But yeah, Lando Norris is my one today.
Big up that.
Yeah,
plug.
I mean, it's easy, isn't it? And yeah, I mean, again, as well, yeah, that's the thing. Yes, Daniel's having a bad time, but don't let that distract from the fact that Lando Norris is continuing to do a phenomenal job at that team. No question. Right, Alpine. It's another easy one. I know, obviously, Alonso, could have maybe played the team game a bit more, maybe didn't need to go as slow as he did, but ultimately he brought home P7, didn't squeeze Hamilton into the barrier. Otherwise, it was a pretty good race for Esteban, but that's a huge kind of mark on his scorecard, a mark down on his scorecard. So for me, it's Alonso for sure. He has to take the dub out of the two of them, surely.
Yeah, I agree. Like, it's got to go to Alonso. He might have been holding up people, and it might not have been beneficial for his teammate or for anyone else racing. But yeah, out-qualified and scored high in the race. So I think it's quite an easy one to go to Alonso in this.
Doesn't take a lot of effort for me to give Alonso the dub in any circumstance, but yeah, it's just a bit weird. I don't know. I feel like there's a few things coming into Fernando in terms of like maybe a bit of pressure about the whole Oscar Piastri situation. He sees he knows the fact that he looks at the championship and he's like, oh, I'm driving at the same level as Ocon, maybe even a tiny bit better in 2022, but the points don't show it. So maybe there's a bit of that kicking in. I can never count it out with Fernando, but yeah, I mean, I've got to give it to Alonso. It was a really good race and a good bounce back because again, it was a recovery in Spain and he scored points, which is great, but he needs to start actually qualifying and scoring good points, which he has because he's got the talent even now. So yeah, Fernando Alonso.
Yeah, Alonso as well. Did the job in qualifying, even though he did bin it on the last lap as well, but he got the lap in first.
That just came out of nowhere,
put the
by the
lap
way.
in first to get that position. And, Monaco, he knows he's raced here so many times, it's so difficult to overtake. And he knew that the car didn't have the pace to attack McLaren or Russell. So just park the bus and hope for the best, and it worked out for him. So Fernando Alonso.
Yeah, I think actually, I know Ocon missed out quite a lot with the red flag in quali as well, because I think his first sector was he's pretty much on par with Fernando. So, but I know Fernando missed out as well. But obviously, he binned it. He was quite critical of himself, but ultimately P7 at Monaco, he could be pretty happy with that. Alfa Romeo, Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guanyu.
Bottas.
I mean, it's Bottas, isn't it? It's P9 in the end, pretty good. Started P12, I'm pretty sure he qualified. Obviously benefited from the Ocon penalty, so that pushed him up a position as well. But yeah, I just think, Bottas is getting the mileage in that car. He's not crashing. He's not having incidents. It's exactly what that team needs. They've got a solid base there. And I think Valtteri's been, this season so far, he's been very consistent. He's been a top tier driver. He's getting the most out of that car. And again, I think the better that Bottas does, the more Zhou Guanyu's going to learn from him. This is what I mean about Mick Schumacher not learning anything in his rookie season from his teammate. Zhou's got a driver with over 10 years experience, about 10 years experience in F1 alongside him. So yeah, Bottas takes the dub. Shame for Joey. Great save from his tank slapper.
Yeah, absolutely.
What a save that was.
That was such a good...
Bottas takes the dub.
Such a sketchy moment, but yeah, really good save from him. But yeah, I've got to go to Bottas as well. I'm just really loving the vibe Bottas is bringing this season. Like he's performing really well with the team. Absolutely. And even, we've seen the whole memes of him giving a frame poster of his lovely photo of him naked in a stream or a river to Lewis Hamilton. And it's just stuff like that.
Waiting for my parcel.
Yeah, literally. And I'm just loving this whole vibe. He's under no real pressure to deliver. And so I think having his defense is down, it's making him perform well on track. The only times where he's had any issues is due to the car reliability, not through his own fault or anything. And this is now, I think, the Bottas 2.0 that we're all kind of wanting to see. But yeah, in terms of the race, yeah, Zhou had some good moments and a sort of, that awesome save he did as well. But yeah, it's got to go to Bottas for me.
I will say, to be fair, in Zhou's defense, in Q1, I think, they literally sent both of the Alfa Romeos out with 1 minute 20 to go when the entire field was already in front of them. So it was what's really the point? And their garage is right at the closest point to the pit exit. Yeah. So they don't even have that excuse. But yeah, it's got to be Bottas. I mean, he's definitely been maybe even the driver of the season when you look at the inconsistencies perhaps at some of the drivers up front, because he's thoroughly ahead of Ocon, I think, in that midfield, and he's just been banging the points every single race. And even when he didn't in Saudi, it was because he retired. So yeah, I mean, he's incredible. There's no doubt about it. And again, I've kind of said this. I don't think he's a different driver to the one that he was at Mercedes. I just think the pressure is just completely off his shoulders. The lights are so much kind of darker, so no one's kind of looking as much as they were in Mercedes. And he's performing at his absolute best, which is great to see. But I want to start seeing Guan Yu Zhou, start scoring some more points, which is in the upcoming races as well, because we're getting into some tracks that he has driven on before. So yeah, hopefully he can start picking up the points.
My surprise of the season, pulling it out the bag again, Valtteri Bottas. He's just doing an incredible job in that team. And like you say, I don't think he's a different driver. I don't think he's a sensational driver like a Lewis Hamilton or Leclerc or Verstappen, but he is a great driver. And people are starting to see this again. He was so hyped in 2016 when he was driving in the Williams, doing incredible jobs. He's did a good job in Mercedes. He like I was saying about Perez this season, he's doing the job he was supposed to do. That's what he was doing for Merck. He wasn't winning races, but he was backing up his teammate. And it's good to see that people put a bit more respect on him. Shout out to Joe. It's actually his birthday today, so I've sent him a pair of boxers because he's going to need a new pair.
Happy birthday, Joey.
After that save yesterday.
This podcast is not sponsored by Manscaped.
Yeah. I'm actually wearing some Manscaped boxers today. They're comfy. But yeah, I mean, Joe, unlucky. I think he's just been unlucky in the last 3 rounds. Miami, he had a DNF. Because of technical, same in Spain. And then here, like Alda said, with the qualifying, was sent out far too late and didn't get an opportunity to even attempt to get out of Q1. So you're starting at the back in Monaco. It's not where you want to be, and you're just kind of trapped there.
Yeah, because look, he's won at Monaco in F2 as well,
Yeah.
He knows the track. But I think Valtteri is the hero that Alfa Romeo needed. You know what I mean? I think he's got that solid, dependable bottom that they can rely on to deliver.
It's a good team dynamic between the two of them.
It is. It's nice seeing. Yeah, it's nice seeing that again. I think it's the job of team managers and principals to manage drivers, and different drivers respond differently. I think Toto, always was like, oh yeah, I want to keep the pressure on Valtteri, but maybe that wasn't the best way to manage him. Yeah. So I'm a little bit critical of Toto there because I think we're seeing a better Bottas. What can I say? But yeah. Anyway, Aston Martin, Sebastian Vettel, Lance Stroll, Seb into Q3 again. Most of our qualifier of the day for Saturday because he did a fantastic job in Monaco last year. And as much as it's kind of a shame moving back to P10 would have been out of the points if it wasn't for the Ocon penalty as well. But comes away with a point. Again, this new Aston Martin car, Red Bull, green, blah, 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 ha, ha, funny. But at the end of the day, they're still trying to understand the car. But obviously Monaco is less car sensitive. It is more on the driver to deliver. And, Seb out-qualified Stroll, drove a solid race. No significant mistakes I remember seeing. I could be wrong. I don't know. But Seb, for me, takes the dub. Easy.
Yeah, same for me. I've already said my pieces earlier about it. I think Seb just did a really, really good job. It's a shame that he got caught up behind. But yeah, still for him to qualify P10, it's brilliant. I think so. Good result for him. I think for the day. I don't think they could have probably achieved any more than that. But I think it's easy enough for this one. Yeah, Vettel for my driver of the day.
Yeah, I think the car and the package is definitely improving. And they're kind of learning about their kind of second car now in 2022. But yeah, I mean, Seb did a great job. He's a really kind of big specialist around Monaco. We saw that last year. And he's kind of been on, all season long, he's been on these alternative strategies to kind of, going really long compared to everyone else. And even today, he pitted super early for the Inters as well. They took that risk. Now, I will say, I mean, even Lance was a tiny bit unlucky because I think he literally pitted 2 laps before Schumacher crashed. But yeah, Seb did a great job. I do think they're going to be a bit disappointed. It's a weird one for Aston Martin. Yeah, they scored points, which is great, but they did go back. So it's kind of it's probably a bit of a weird feeling in the garage, but overall the performance was good. Qualifying was amazing. And I think it gives the team hope, going forward that they can kind of start breaking into that midfield more regularly.
Yep, got to go with Vettel for this one. As I said earlier, Stroll can't qualify, so this track's never going to be a good one for him. And I think Vettel could have scored more points. I think he was screwed over by the strategy. You look at Alonso, he did the stay out on wets, go to slick strategy, same as Sainz. And that, for me, personally, was the best strategy of the day, to go from wets to slicks. And Aston Martin, for some reason, just wanted to go early, put Vettel into traffic. At Monaco, it's just not what you do. Why would you put yourself... Same with the Lewis Hamilton going early, put him behind Ocon, and then you're stuck. And it's just it just doesn't really
I think
work.
They were looking at what Gasly was doing and we can overtake
Gasly was quick and he was able to overtake, but you're at the back, you can make more risks. And I just feel the people that he was overtaking as well, maybe they were making a little bit of mistakes on traction and it was just made it a little bit easier. Whereas the other drivers were just a tank, just putting up the wall and you weren't able to get through. So, yeah, I just feel like Aston Martin kind of screwed Vettel over. I think potentially he could have finished 8th behind Alonso if he had stayed out on the wets because Hamilton pitted, went back behind Ocon. So, yeah, I feel like Vettel could have potentially had 8th here today, but like I say, still points, and Vettel for me has taken that dub.
Another point on the board for Aston Martin. All right, AlphaTauri. This one's difficult. Gasly, Tsunoda. Now, obviously, in qualifying, Gasly just missed the line, so wasn't able to set
So
his
close.
quickest time.
Because of
like
Tsunoda
2
as
seconds
well.
off. So Tsunoda was ahead, just got across, got out of Q1. Gasly didn't. I think given where Gasly started to come home P11 is a very good drive. And Tsunoda, I don't know what happened to Yuki. I have literally no idea. I don't know if any of you guys can tell me. So I've got to give it to
fell
Pierre.
apart.
Yeah, I don't know what happened
apart the
to so I'm giving it Gasly. But Yuki, he's been very good this year, but not one to remember for Yuki Tsunoda.
Yeah, and like Gasly was the first one to properly, as we said, to sort of just switch tires, and we saw him having decent pace as well. And I think they're one of the very few overtakes we actually saw. I think was him passing before going into the hairpin. I don't know if that was him just being let pass, because I think it might have been Bottas, or Joe, sorry, because Joe went off. Yeah. So I think loads of people were thinking, no, that's a proper on-track overtake, where actually I think he probably got instructed to let him pass because he went over the chicane in the previous lap. I'm not too sure what happened to Tsunoda. We didn't see much of him in the broadcast. We didn't see much of the broadcast anyway, because we were mentioning earlier, we didn't know Magnussen retired until very later on into it. But we didn't see much of Tsunoda, and I think Gasly, we could see him moving up the order. So Gasly's my driver of the day.
Wow, driver of the day. Are you talking about?
Not driver of the day. Sorry. Between these two.
Driving. Go on.
Not driver of the day. Sorry, misspoke. I mean, you know what I mean.
I know, but I was gonna say, in the words of George Russell, blimey. No, fair enough. I think it's weird with Tsunoda. I'm looking at the Pirelli information. He pitted on lap 56 for a set of softs, so he did kind of what Lando did, but he didn't have a gap. So I'm not quite sure what that was all about, but. I think Pierre, honestly, I think he could have out-qualified. He had the pace all weekend throughout practice and qualifying and got super unlucky. I think he would have been up there with Norris, not going to lie, if he got to Q3. So he's got super unlucky, to be honest, and this was a big opportunity. But he did the job, he did what he could. Unfortunately, didn't get into the points, but it's just that kind of season. And I think it's a weird one with Pierre because, we talk about the pressure on Daniel Ricciardo, I think he's going to be looking at that McLaren drive if Daniel does get dropped. So he needs to keep performing. And I think it was another really good race and performance. Just maybe the points didn't kind of, show it at the end.
Yep, Gogo Gasly for me, just missed out on the points. And in terms of Tsunoda, so basically he was stuck in that train, they decided to put him into softs. And then he just kept on going too deep at Sainte Devote, a couple of times, just kept on braking too late and going too deep into Sainte Devote. I thought it was quite funny at the time because there was the train of Perez, Sainz, Verstappen all behind them, and I thought maybe they were on the radio get out of the way, so he just goes too deep and just gets completely out of the way of those guys. But then he did it again later, so maybe he just enjoyed it, was just exploring the Monaco track and just seeing what's down all the different escape routes. Yeah, exactly. Maybe he's trying to find one to get back in the race. But his qualifying was great, but it fell apart in the race, and it's driver fault. So it's an easy one for Gasly, regardless of the overtakes that he made.
Fair play. And then Haas, obviously K-Mag out-qualified. Schumacher pulled up through no fault of his own. It was a water pressure leak
cramp
thing, something to do with that.
Yeah.
Cramp. And Mick binned it on his own. And it's not a great day for Haas, both cars not finishing. But I guess I'll give it to Kev because I just think Schumacher, that shunt was a big mark on his scorecard. So I'm giving it to Kevin, but no one's really a winner here.
Yeah, I've got to give it to Kevin as well. Day to forget for Haas, and I'm starting to get worried now in terms of their reliability packages of now they're losing out on parts, and just can't keep having these mistakes now from Mick, and again being out qualified by your teammate, someone who's been out of the sport for a little bit, to then come back and then sort of showing up a bit like that is not good. So this one for me has got to go to Kevin. Yeah,
obviously K-Mag as well. The social media Twitter is already mid Schumacher, that's popping off early. So that's not good for him. But yeah, I mean, the highlight again, I just got to bring it back to like Mick in the wall, and then all of a sudden it just cuts to Kevin like looking at him in the pit lane. I was like, what is going? How did that happen? But yeah, it's got to go to K-Mag. But I mean, again, no one's a winner. It's a double L, triple L in terms of the amount of money that's going to cost Haas, and I genuinely worry about the end of the season in terms of like if they're going to have it, because they're nowhere near that 135 million budget cap, whatever it is. Like they're nowhere near that, and I'm genuinely worried about, are they going to have enough money to even make it to the end of the season in like the last 5 races? So yeah, not good.
It wouldn't be a surprise if we rock up at Azerbaijan and mix on the sidelines again, like we had in Saudi Arabia, because it's a street circuit. It's very easy through the castle section to make a mistake and put these cars are a lot wider as well. So yeah, it's going to be something that they have to decide on. But yeah, easy one for Magnussen. Didn't bin it. Simple as that.
And
can I just say that's the bar at Haas. Like if you don't bin it, you're the best driver. Like
job done.
It's just like last year.
Which is so frustrating because they actually have a good car underneath them as well.
Yeah.
Like, they haven't really bought the upgrades yet, and this is what like that. Maybe this is partly why they haven't brought upgrades earlier, because they had the shunt in Jeddah. This isn't going to help now. All this money to rebuild the car. So yeah, not a good, when they do have a good car underneath them, which is that you feel like they're missing opportunities here, which I kind of feel the same about
even
Alpine,
K-Mag last time out actually in Spain with that collision with
delivering.
Lewis. It's just mistakes again, which is kind of like what we used to see with
Exactly. It's a shame because it's nice to see Haas back up there, but they're not really delivering what they should be. And then Williams, I'm giving it to Latifi because Albon had, I don't know what he was on. Just a weird race. Like, again, he got the 5-second penalty for corner cutting because he just kept going on straight. He, held up Leclerc. I don't understand what he was doing, why he didn't just get out of the way. There's obviously huge conspiracy theories on Twitter with the whole, he's Red Bull affiliated, so he held up Leclerc. But then, like you said, Latifi also held up Sainz, and they're both like, he's not affiliated with Red Bull, so I don't really.
He is. He crashed for them last season in Abu Dhabi.
He's done you. To be fair, he's done you.
Very good. But to be fair, no, you got me there. And then pulls up. He pulled up. He DNF'd. He just brought the car in because he was like, this feels really unsafe. Like, there was something. I don't know whether he was just embarrassed and just thought, I'm just going to bring it in. I can't be
early.
I don't know. So not a good race from Alex at all. I mean, not much better from Latifi. Again, almost ended his own race before it even started. But at least he made it to the end. Yes, he did hold up Sainz, but I mean, at least he didn't get a 5-second penalty.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give it to Latifi, but again, no one really wins here.
Yeah, it's a real shame because Albon actually out-qualified Latifi by 8/10, I think it was. So
it was more
he
no,
did
it was
dunk on
Albon
him.
out-qualified, but it was 1.2, 1.4 seconds.
What
it was
was
crazy.
It's still a
did dunk on him,
big old margin. And I think the team, he came into box and basically said that something felt wrong with the car. So I think the team are basically going to take apart the car anyway, just to sort of see what's going on, to see if there was any actual issues. But even then, though, it's got to go to Latifi because the mistakes Albon was making during the race, going over the chicane multiple times and just sort of holding people up. It's just common things. That stuff needs to be ironed out straight away. And
it's silly.
Yeah. So unfortunately,
he's got enough experience to not be doing stuff like that.
Exactly that. Yeah. So for me, it's got to go to Latifi. Unfortunately.
Yeah, it's going to go to Latifi. Obviously, I feel like this was the first really kind of bad race for Alex since his comeback, to be honest. But he's got so much credit in the bank now in terms of the points that he scored. That it's kind of you can afford him to give him a bad race, but. But even so, giving it to Latifi, he got massively. I need to look at the gap, but I'm pretty sure it was over 1 second that he got out qualified.
8 tenths.
I was 8 tenths, but even
it was 8 tenths.
Around Monaco, that's looking at how close it was. That's a chunky gap right there, and
it's a short lap, isn't it?
Exactly, short lap. So I don't know what's Latifi, but it's there you go.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean Latifi as well, but it's just, Albon I don't know what he was doing this weekend, Mr. Tomo, but he needs to just take a little look at himself there. It's clearly the rivalry between him and Stroll is just heating up at the moment. So
Yeah.
it's getting to him. The pressure's
Yeah, I
getting
mean,
to him.
look, Alex and Charles are like besties, so I don't think he'd hold him up through any like Red Bull persuade. I don't know. I don't believe the conspiracy theories.
Put 2 and 2 together,
I
it makes 4. Do you know what I mean?
I just think he had a bit of head loss and was just because some of his radios, like Alex's, he sound like a lot of the drivers sounded stressed, but Alex sounded so stressed at times on the radio. I was like, wow, like it's all right, mate, calm down. But there you go. That's the Monaco Grand Prix for 2022. Maybe the last Monaco Grand Prix of all time.
Who knows?
No.
I mean, I hope not. But we'll see, won't we? If the Automobile Club de Monaco give their head a wobble and stop gatekeeping the sport, I guess. But anyway, thank you all for coming. Thank you all for watching, listening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Aldas. Thank you, Hayden, for joining me today. Next week, I don't know if we'll all be here. Someone else will be hosting.
Whoever
We're
wakes
alternating it,
up.
mixing it up. Whoever
Obviously.
wakes up. Exactly. Hayden will be in
Well, I think I'm in the
slumber.
Netherlands, so I don't think I will be here.
Oh, well, there you go. That explains it. You can get Fem on. She can do the
Yeah.
podcast instead of you. Get better insight from her. Mate.
Dutch bias, let's go.
But yes, thank you for watching. Like the video if you're watching on YouTube and subscribe to the channel. Also give us 5 stars. Do all that good stuff on Spotify, Apple Podcasts if you're audio only. And we will see you on the next one. Cheerio. Adios.
Bye.
See ya.